was already planning to make this my next video, so I find it pretty funny that with the new Zatanna ongoing series getting announced for this April, that this would be the perfect time for me to do so. In case anyone's unaware, Zatanna is a character who is a real magician who can cast spells by speaking backwards and also does stage shows with a bubbly personality and a showgirl attitude. For that reason alone, I think she is a huge standout character from the DC universe, and I've always wanted to learn more about her, but I never got the chance. So you should be able to tell that when DC announced that Zatanna would get her very own miniseries for last April, I knew that I needed to reserve my copy of each issue in the hopes that she would get an ongoing. Now that my efforts have paid off, I think it's time for me to finally give my thoughts on it. Well, I can safely say that Zatanna 2025, written, drawn and coloured by Jamal Campbell and lettered by Ariana Maya, that this book is pretty much everything I ever wanted out of it. Before we get into it, if you don't know too much about Zatanna from her previous runs or appearances in other books, this is a very beginner-friendly book, as Campbell gives you the basics of a backstory without going into too much detail for those who want to find out for themselves. There's no better place to start than with Zatanna herself. It's her series and I think she was written very wonderfully. She has that awesome showgirl attitude when she's on stage, and is very friendly to other people off stage like Adam, an assistant who accidentally hurts her during practice, but who she's more than happy to give some friendly advice to help him improve on his self-esteem. That same amount of care persists when Adam, along with her other assistants, are captured by the Lady White, as she jumps in head first to save them all. Of course, she does all of this with a showgirl attitude, like when she saves Adam by catching a bullet in her mouth, a very classic magic trick. However, the fun quickly stops for her as Adam stabs her in the back with a magic sword that hurts her every time she tries to remove it. While she is able to escape the encounter alive, she remains unable to remove the sword from her body, even when she tries everything she can to remove it. So she, along with her fellow Justice League Dark member Blue Devil, go to find Adam and the Lady White, only to find that Adam has been killed long before the theater incident. This realization pisses her off to the point where she traps Blue Devil in chains to confront Lady White alone. While this isn't a particularly smart decision on her part, it at least makes sense with the revelation that someone so close to her was brutally murdered, and since she is also close with Blue Devil, she doesn't want her guilt to add up. Once Zatanna finds out that Adam's impersonator turns out to be Basil Karlo, the first Clayface, she's pissed off, leading to the two fighting, which ends in Zatanna almost ripping both of them apart, which is shown off in a very brutal fashion to show just how powerful this woman can be when you mess with her. When she finally wakes up, she realizes what her brutal spell did to Clayface and is genuinely remorseful, realizing that he was only in on Lady White's plan to get his family back. Once she's back home, Zatanna continues trying to get the sword out of her body, with zero luck and a voice in her head giving her intense self-doubt. But after a quick catch-up with her friends and some help from Vasily the Demon of Nightmares, she finally finds out that Lady White and her boss Brother Knight are at the Crimson Palace nightclub. When Zatanna arrives, she does so in style, and wants to get straight to business with Brother Knight, which escalates into a battle between her, an undead Adam, and Blue Devil, who's been turned into his demon form of Nibiros, which goes as poorly as you might think. But Zatanna still has a trick up her sleeve, as she's able to escape the nightclub, although not unscathed as her entire body is still falling apart, and she has to deal with a darker version of herself created from the sword. The doppelganger twists Zatanna's memories into those of everyone in her life being hostile towards her, but she is able to see through all of these lies and forces the doppelganger to put her back together to show what she can really do. It's also here where she literally breaks reality so hard to the point where she is able to skip her encounter with the doppelganger entirely. Yeah, Zatanna is this powerful. Once she's escaped the fight, Zatanna hunts down her double, but not before meeting up with her mother Cindella for a brief catch-up, and being provided with her guidance and protection even through deaths. Zatanna finally comes face to face with her double, and it's here where she figures out that the double, and by extension the sword, was Leviathan, a sword that conducts lies to slow down the person it stabbed into. That should speak volumes to how powerful Zatanna truly is, not just in fighting abilities or her magic, but mainly in her willpower. Because despite all of the lies provided to her and how hard the sword was to take out, she still had the strength and the willpower to keep on pushing through the pain it caused her. So, all of this helps in making Zatanna's final beatdown on a double all the more satisfying to read. Now, Zatanna joins back into the fight at the Crimson Palace, only to find out that one of her old enemies, Allura, the woman who kidnapped her father Giovanni, was behind the scenes of this plot with the White Lady. This time, Zatanna has brought the Justice League Dark Wizard, and this fight goes pretty damn hard, as Zatanna is able to bring Blue Devil back to his normal form and get Lady White to help her defeat Allura by stabbing her with the same Leviathan that she used on Clayface. Once the battle has settled down, Zatanna and Lady White catch up on a couple of things, where we see that Zatanna turned Allura into a cute spirit animal that looks like an Eevee. While she's still suspicious of Lady White's intentions, she lets her go in order to avoid another fight so soon after the last one. Now, with everything settled, Zatanna goes back to her performance magic, knowing that her friends will always have her back. Okay, that was a lot to go through with her character arc, but I feel all the details are necessary to understand what makes her, especially in this series, so compelling as a character. She always has a show-off attitude and is pretty caring towards others, mainly due to her past trauma with losing both of her parents. But if you get on her bad side, she can get stupidly overpowered very quickly. Blue Devil, aka Daniel Cassidy, is a very important character as well. Just by looking at him, you'd think he'd be a tough, brutish guy, and while that was true in the past, it was because of Zatanna's help that he was able to break out of that mindset, and that he's now become a very chill and caring person, who's ready to help Zatanna out whenever she needs it. Even when Zatanna says she doesn't want his help, he joins her anyway, and while it does lead to him getting captured and tortured by Brother Knight, it shows the lengths he's willing to go to help out his friend. While Brother Knight and Lady White are unable to penetrate his skin, Lady White is able to turn him back into his Nibiru's form, and he proves to be a very powerful threat against Zatanna, along with the other adversaries she has to deal with. But once Zatanna is back into the fight, she's able to pull him out of his form by helping him believe in himself and return to normal. And once the battle is over, he promises to be there for his friend no matter what. Clayface also matters in this story, as he is the one to successfully trick Zatanna into thinking he's her friend Adam, which goes off without a hitch. We learn that he not only did this because Lady White promised him that they'd give him back both his acting career and family, which are quickly taken away from him right before his eyes, which Lady White uses as an opportunity to make him think Zatanna killed them. This breaks out into a crazy fight between them that is only stopped by Zatanna using a very powerful spell to rip him apart. Once the dust settles, Basil shows serious remorse for his actions and tells her that he was also impaled by a Leviathan like Zatanna was, but doesn't remember much else afterwards. He is able to redeem himself at the end, as he joins the JLD to help Zatanna trap Lady White in a box where Zatanna can enter her mind. So I definitely say he was used well. Most of the other Justice League Dark members are in this miniseries as well, from Madame Xanadu, Detective Chimp, Etrigan, Dr. Fate, Ragman, and Wonder Woman. The overall team doesn't do much throughout the book until Zatanna summons them all to help out in the final battle, and we do get some cool interactions between Zatanna and each of her colleagues. My favourite is definitely Etrigan getting disappointed that he doesn't have a brutal fight with Blue Devil. That shit was funny. One thing that could have had more weight throughout the series is definitely Zatanna's stage route. They're not bad characters, they just don't have a lot to do throughout the book. It is implied that they have histories Zatanna prior to the book's events, but none of it is explored here. All they do is get captured by Lady White and then saved by Zatanna in issue 1. And then in issue 4, they all come over to give her a nice pep talk, but are never seen again afterwards. Although Andre, one of the workers, does get to punch a cowboy in issue 1. That was cool. I'm not too mad about this, as they are supposed to be minor characters, and I do see them getting more development in the ongoing series. The character from the stage group who does get the most screen time is Adam, the youngest member of the group, who has huge self-esteem problems that Zatanna is more than happy to help out with. But when he gets saved by Zatanna like the rest of the group, we don't exactly see him leave. In fact, he stabs Zatanna right in the back with the Leviathan, which was a really cool twist. I know that was Clayface acting as the guy, but since Zatanna and the rest were able to believe it was Adam, I guess it kinda counts. Even in deaths, Adam continues to be the main driving force for Zatanna's frustrations, and gets used by Lady White and Brother Knight as an undead pawn against Z at the Crimson Palace. Once the battle is over, Adam is presumed missing from the JLD, and unbeknownst to them, the Lady White has kept him as her personal henchman. leaving the door open for him to cause some further conflict with Zatanna. Speaking of Lady White, I feel it's time to start talking about the villains, and I think this time I'm going to try doing them all at once, as their characters' arcs intertwine pretty closely with each other. With Lady White, she is a very powerful threat, able to draw Zatanna in by using her friends as bait to let her guard down. She's a former undead actress who was brought back to life by her boss/lover, Brother Knight, the orchestrator of this plan against Zatanna. She is very fashionable, self-centered, and treats most everyone around her like a slave. Despite Lady White's powers of manipulation, Brother Knight is very abusive towards her and can control her whenever she steps out of line. Brother Knight is also a pretty cool villain, who will take everything he wants and won't take no for an answer, even if it involves hurting people, even his minions. Once Zatanna finally comes face to face with these two monsters, they use two of her best friends to attack her, which would have been successful if Zatanna didn't escape last minute. This does, however, leave Lady White with the chance to finally get the one-up she needs on Knight by stabbing him with a Leviatine, and she really lets him know how she feels about everything he's done to her since he brought her back to life. It's also here where we find out that she was planning this whole event alongside Zatanna's archenemy, Allura, someone who promised to get White out of her abusive relationship. Brother Knight has his own last trick up his sleeve, however, as he turns the whole palace into a hellhole that swallows everything in it, and is able to escape the fight unscathed. As if things couldn't get worse for the two villains, Zatanna arrives with the JLD to further thwart their plans, which leads to Zatanna entering Lady White's mind to show her the truth of Allura's intentions to take all of her memories and magic for herself. So, with this revelation in mind, Lady White puts aside her differences with Zatanna and takes down Allura once and for all. Now, with all of this laid out, you'd think that Lady White would try to turn sides, right? Well, no. Instead, she keeps the undead Adam as her slave and lies to Zatanna when she asks for his whereabouts. She also lets Z know that she will tear through anyone to get to Brother Knight, setting up a potential rivalry for the two moving forward. Before I wrap up my review, I want to talk about the art, and for not only writing but also drawing, inking and colouring this entire 6-issue run, Jamal Campbell really knocked it out of the park. I don't know if I have much to say overall because I think the art kind of speaks for itself. Everything just feels so warm and cozy to look at, and I love how Campbell uses the colours to match the tones of the different scenes, while also making all of the colours pop right off the page. I think what I love the most is the way the panels are done, as each page goes for a different style to make each scene feel extra special. Again, I don't know what else to say aside from I just like the cool editing choices. Anyway, that's how I feel about Jamal Campbell's Zatanna miniseries. It's a brilliant comic book that not only has some of the best story and character work imaginable, but also some really good art, and some fantastic ways of using the comic book medium to its greatest potential. So I can definitely say from this series alone, I'm definitely excited to read more Zatanna books going forward. I think a lot of other DC fans who read it also agree with me, as Campbell will return to write this year's ongoing series starting in April, and I will 100% be buying that series when it comes out. I really liked making this video as a whole, so I'm hoping to keep talking about Zatanna comics and just other comic books in general going forward. So if you want that as well, I highly recommend subscribing, hitting the notification button, and sharing this video around, so that more people can recognize my analytic talents when it comes to comic books. Anyway, I'm Jedi-Liam 64, and I think I've taken up enough of your time. So, I'll see you all later.